9.8 million Americans in organized leagues, 12,000 bowling centers coast to coast, televised finals, six-figure purses, sponsors lining up. At the center of it all, Pete Weber, bowling royalty, the biggest star the sport ever produced. Then the money vanished, the sponsors walked, and the man who had everything went broke. This is not just one man's fall, it is the story of an entire industry collapsing underneath him. Under the glow of neon signs and the steady thrum of pin setters, bowling alleys became the unofficial gathering spots of American life. By 1980, more than 12,000 centers dotted the country, each one packed with league nights, birthday parties, and the electric buzz of Friday night cosmic bowling. Nearly 10 million people rolled in organized leagues, crowding the lanes with matching shirts and dreams of a perfect game. The air was thick with cigarette smoke, laughter, and the unmistakable scent of rented shoes. In the suburbs, bowling alleys doubled as social clubs, cocktail lounges on one side, arcade games on the other, and a sea of scorecards in between. The scene was as much about community as competition. Families came for the cheap fun, teenagers for the laser lights and thumping jukeboxes, and adults for the chance to chase a little glory after a long work week. Bowling was more than a pastime. It was a cultural force, powerful enough to turn its best players into television celebrities. The lanes were the stage, and for a brief, shining era, America was watching. Pete Weber grew up in the shadow of a legend. His father, Dick Weber, wasn't just a champion. He was the face of American bowling, a founding icon whose name carried weight in every alley from St. Louis to Las Vegas. For Pete, the lanes were home. He learned to bowl at the Dick Weber Academy, where mornings began with the sound of rolling balls and his father's quiet advice echoing over polished wood. By age 14, Pete held a Professional Bowlers Association tour card, the youngest ever at the time. Most kids his age were just figuring out high school. Pete was lining up against grown men on national television, his name already whispered as the next great. By 18, he had racked up multiple top 10 finishes, earning the respect of veterans and the curiosity of sponsors. The Weber name meant expectation, but Pete brought something different, raw talent mixed with a streak of rebellion. Even as a teenager, he carried himself with a swagger that set him apart, hinting at the storm he would bring to the sport and the spotlight that would never quite leave him. Spotlights swept across the lanes, but Pete Weber always drew the brightest glare. He was not just Dick Weber's son, he was the sport's wild card, strutting in mirrored sunglasses and neon shirts, flipping the script on what a bowler could be. Crowds loved the bravado, the fist pumps, the taunts. Sponsors noticed too. By his mid-20s, Weber was collecting six-figure purses, like the $50,000 winner's check at the 1987 Firestone Tournament of Champions, a sum that dwarfed his father's earnings in a single afternoon. He racked up 37 PBA titles, each one adding to a reputation built on risk and reward. Off the tournament circuit, Weber became a fixture at places like the Showboat Hotel in Las Vegas, a 60-lane palace where casino lights met the hum of high-stakes cash games and exhibition matches. Equipment makers lined up for his signature, offering royalties on bowling balls stamped with his name. Even his sunglasses became a brand. Pete's image, part rock star, part rebel, sold everything from beer to bowling bags. The money flowed as fast as the fame, and for a while, it felt like the party would never end. Under the casino lights, Pete Weber's swagger masked a growing storm. The money he made on tour, the checks that once seemed untouchable, started slipping through his fingers faster than he could win them. Nights in Las Vegas and Atlantic City, meant for celebration, turned into battles with the house. Nevada gaming records from the early 2000s list Weber as a frequent high roller, with losses tallied in the hundreds of thousands. It was not just the thrill of the tables, it was the pressure to keep up with an image, to live as loudly off the lanes as he did on them. The IRS took notice. Federal tax liens began stacking up, public records showing unpaid balances that stretched into six figures. Endorsement money, casino winnings, even appearance fees, none of it seemed to stick. Each big win was followed by another round of spending, another attempt to outrun the debts piling up behind him. The sunglasses, the neon, those were shields for a man who was losing control. Fame had opened every door, but addiction and financial chaos were waiting on the other side, ready to take everything he had built. The foundation of professional bowling began to crack long before Pete Weber's personal fortunes faded. In 1997, ABC ended its decades-long contract with the Pro Bowlers Association, pulling the sport out of millions of living rooms almost overnight. The loss was seismic. No more Saturday afternoons with 12 million viewers, no more network bumpers selling the dream of a perfect game. Prize money withered. By 1999, the total championship purse of the PBA had fallen to just $1.8 million, a fraction of its former glory. The pain rippled outward. League participation, once the lifeblood of bowling's grassroots, collapsed by 40% through the 1990s. Alleys emptied. League nights faded into memory. For the first time, the stars of the PBA, once household names, found themselves playing to smaller crowds with shrinking checks and fewer sponsors. The money that fueled Weber's rise, the ecosystem that made his persona marketable, was evaporating. Behind the neon and the noise, the sport's economic engine sputtered, leaving its icons exposed to a reality they were never prepared to face. Pete Weber's fire on the lanes sometimes spilled over in ways sponsors couldn't ignore. The 2002 season brought a notorious outburst, Weber's anger boiling over during a televised match, his frustration clear to everyone watching. In an era when the sport was desperate for good press, the incident became a problem no one could spin. Budweiser, once his most loyal backer, ended their partnership in 2003. For Weber, that was more than a lost logo on his shirt. It was a six-figure hit to his annual income and a public sign that the money was not as secure as it looked. The economics of the tour turned punishing. By 2005, the entire PBA championship purse had shrunk below $2 million, a fraction of what it once was. For bowlers like Weber, expenses never shrank. Travel, entry fees, hotels, and agents still swallowed nearly 30% of every check. The math was brutal. Even winning did not guarantee stability. The glare of the cameras, the roar of the crowd, none of it could cover the reality that the golden age was gone. Weber's public meltdowns and sponsor losses were not just personal crises, they were warning signs that the foundation of his career and the sport itself was collapsing beneath his feet. Pete Weber refused to disappear. When the big checks vanished and the cameras drifted away, he found new ways to survive. In St. Louis, he opened the Weber Bowling Academy, teaching the next generation on the same lanes where he once chased perfection. The academy became more than a business. It was a lifeline, a place to pass on his father's lessons and his own hard-won wisdom. On weekends, he toured the senior circuit, grinding through smaller venues and collecting modest purses that kept the lights on. Media gigs offered another thread. As an analyst for televised PBA events, Weber's voice, sharp, opinionated, unmistakable, carried the weight of someone who had lived every high and low. He sold signed bowling balls, t-shirts, and even his trademark sunglasses online, turning his image into a brand that loyal fans still wanted to wear. For a man who once seemed destined for the highlight reel, Reinvention meant hustling for every dollar, but it also meant proving he could outlast the collapse. Pete Weber's story lingers in the echoes of empty alleys and faded neon. He was more than a champion, he was a living contradiction, all bravado and vulnerability, swagger and scars. For a generation, Weber's image was the sport's calling card, sunglasses glinting under TV lights, fist raised in wild triumph, a rebel who refused to play by anyone's rules but his own. Yet behind the showmanship, his journey became a cautionary tale about what happens when fame is built on shifting ground. The money, the crowds, the feeling of being untouchable, all of it could vanish as quickly as a strike resets the pins. Weber's arc, from prodigy to anti-hero to survivor, mirrors the fate of the game he loved, a brief moment when the world was watching, followed by years spent fighting to stay relevant in a sport that no longer promised fortune or forgiveness. In the end, his legacy isn't just a tally of titles or viral outbursts, it's the reminder that even legends can be left behind when the spotlight fades. Today, bowling's TV lights have faded, but the cost of chasing fleeting celebrity endures. Pete Weber's swagger masked an industry on shaky ground, a warning for every star who rides a wave that vanishes overnight. The real game isn't on the lanes, it's surviving after the spotlight dies.